So I think one of the most important things to realize about power dreaming is that it is both science and practice based. As you saw already covered, the science is rooted in the concepts of allostasis, having to do with the stress response, and neuroplasticity, that is, how the brain learns, particularly under stress. The second thing is that power dreaming is based upon practice, meaning that what we are doing here is using computer-based technology to enhance the power of the approaches we've been using with nightmares and insomnia for years. The home training model is extremely important because one of the things we need to realize, based upon allostasis and neuroplasticity, that the brain requires practice in order to override what is a strongly rooted sympathetic stress response. And in order to do that, the brain has to have an opportunity to do that over time and with tools that are very, very powerful because we default to sympathetic activity. In the 30 years I've been in practice and dealing with PTSD and many other behavioral health problems, no one's ever come in and said, "Can you help me? I'm not getting stressed out enough." So human beings know how to stress. What we need help with is learning how to develop a higher locus of control, a higher degree of confidence to deal with the challenges that life presents us, including PTSD. Well, again, stressing the value of practice and training as opposed to treatment. The brain is a learning machine, but the brain reacts because of the survival instinct of human beings and other mammals. So what that means is that we need to provide them powerful tools that they have access to 24/7 to habituate or condition this relaxation response in order to offset the built-in sympathetic reactivity of the brain, the fight and flight response. So let's look at customized immersion. What we're doing here is providing the trainee a structure in which he can create his own unique idiosyncratic view of the world. And so power dreaming provides several worlds in which the individual makes that world unique to him. If you had 1 million people doing power dreaming, you'd have 1 million different virtual experiences in that virtual world. And that customization then resonates personally with that individual and therefore has much more meaning than a canned virtual experience. So let's look really at the emphasis of power dreaming. The emphasis is to create a virtual world, an opportunity for someone to create experiences where they are successful in dealing with challenges associated with the way the brain works. So one of the problems with the brain is that it will remember dysfunctional information, that is, memories that do not help us adapt, as well as it remembers functional ones. For instance, it makes no sense really when you think about it from a rational perspective that something that happened to me 40 years ago in Vietnam would still be as real as it was 40 years ago, or maybe even more real, to the point that it would create a startle response or nightmares. And yet I have seen Vietnam veterans who still have nightmares many, many years after the experience. And so we need to appreciate and respect that this is the way the brain works. And this also means that we need to give the brain an opportunity to dislodge these old memories through habituation and learning. And that is the whole essence of power dreaming from a virtual perspective. So when we're talking about the Proteus effect, what we're really talking about is the ability of the brain in a virtual world to learn and also to change beliefs and actually then transfer those experiences and those competencies into the real world. And this is not really much different than the way we train fighter pilots. For instance, for maybe the first year of their training, they're in a virtual world, not a real world, learning how to fly F-18s and land them on carrier decks. And because of their experiences in the virtual world, the brain fires and wires these new kind of programs to give them a high locus of control to transfer those skills into the real world. Well, power dreaming does the same thing. The Proteus effect is a term that describes how this actually works and was actually coined recently at the Stanford Virtual Human Interaction Lab in work that was done by Dr. Yi. And I think it's very important to realize that we are tapping into the science in order to evolve the power dreaming concept. So from a psychological perspective, the Proteus effect may look something like this. You have an individual that has a great deal of difficulty, for instance, dealing with crowds, agoraphobia. And so you provide in the virtual world opportunities in an avatar created by the user, unique to that user, where that avatar has positive experiences dealing with crowds and then transferring that belief system, that future belief, into the virtual world of his real life. So when we're talking about future vision, I think what I'd like to say about that is when I developed Power Dreaming over 4 years ago, I always looked at this as putting tools in the hands of users, behavioral health tools in the hands of warriors. And this really means we'd like to be able to have these guys take these tools with them into the virtual world of combat, because everybody's combat experience is very, very different. Wouldn't it be nice if they had the capability to clean up psychologically as they go, rather than allowing trauma to overlay over trauma and trauma over time, and then when they come back, deal with them as an image of pathology with PTSD? And I think you're going to find that Marines and soldiers would appreciate having these tools and being respected and trained to use them. Another aspect of future vision is that power dreaming, because it's fundamentally based upon good neuroscience and the way the brain learns, is that we could also apply power dreaming as a model with things such as chronic pain, giving people the opportunity to override the pain response by habituating a positive adaptive response rather than going to the pills, going to the narcotics in order to get relief.